Joining me today are Adam Horne, CEO of Tombill Mines, and also Tim Twomey, Senior Advisor for the company.
Hi, Andrew.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. My name's Adam Horne, and I'm here with Tim, who is very important in terms of our identification of our resource. Just to give you a very quick overview on Tombill, and it will be a quick overview because it's a very simple story and a very simple asset relative to many mining assets out there. And the chief thing to start off is we're a real closeology play. Our neighbor, of which Tim did all the discovery, essentially from 2008 to 2012, has to date demonstrated about 10 million ounces of resource, of which about 5.5 million are proven and probable. Indicated is about 1.5 million, inferred 1.3 million. And so that adds up, if you added that aggregate up, that adds up to about 10 million ounces on our neighbor. And you can see on slide 3 where Tombill is relative to our neighbor, which is the Hardrock project, which is owned by Greenstone, which surrounds us 360 degrees. Moreover, between 1938 and 70, our neighbor extracted 2 million ounces of gold. So we're in the Geraldton Gold Camp is really quite an extensive resource, and now that they will be mining or at least constructing to do a mine in the second half of 2021, as Equinox has stated, this area will become a real reality. And Tim, who's going to join me, has been a very, very important part of that coming to fruition. With regards to the resource, they're probably the best hole they found, which is an F zone, which is the highest grade area, and demonstrated the most ounces with regard of this 10 million resource. They had a hole about 100 meters from our boundary that was 18.5 grams per ton, over 20.5 meters. So, and then you couple that with the fact that they have 15 plus targeted zones on this Hardrock project, which is outlined in red. And you can see why, going from east to west, you can see why Tombill becomes very important in terms of the extension of the Hardrock project. And to achieve that, we have a 3-part drilling and surface exploration program. Deeper drilling, which is looking for the F zone and to a lesser extent SP zones and K zone, plus other zones that I'm sure we will find that are unique to Tombill, other than Hardrock, we have embarked on, and the drills are running as we speak. Second part is we are going to do surface work, geophysics surveys, and we can't embark on that really until June, but we can do some earlier preparation, which we've done with drone airborne mags and preparations in terms of the pads where we'll look at these zones, which once again Tim will get into later. And then the third part is, we believe, sort of in the northern part of the property, which complements very much the surface work we're doing. We will do some drilling on an average about 300 meters per hole. You see about 8 targets on that. One thing is worth emphasizing, because we all are investors and we all have to quantify things in the end, that our neighbor in mid-December was sold in 2 parts, since it was owned 50-50 before by Premier and 50% by Centera. The easiest way to assess the value was that Centera sold their 50% interest for $225 million US, plus a $75 million contingency to Orion, which is a private equity mining company. And at the same time, Premier did sell their whole company to Equinox, and that was obviously in excess of that price, but they had other assets in there. So the Orion Centerra transaction quantifies into about into about 400 million Canadian. So on a 100% basis, that quantifies, to about 800 million Canadians. So that's it's a target that we're aiming for in terms of creating value. The Geraldton Gold Camp did achieve quite a lot during the 30s to 70s. It mined in excess of 4 million ounces of gold, of which our neighbor Hardrock was roughly about half of that. But that was, real mom and pop organizations. And Tim, once again, can go and he's done a lot of work where that mining took place, and the amount of additional accretion in those where gold was mined is quite interesting. So it's our job in a secondary basis after Hardrock is to really reinforce and make sure this Geraldton Gold Camp comes to fruition. Our property is surrounded by a golf course, a town of 4,000 people, and it's really split by the Trans-Canada Highway right in the middle. So it's a very unique situation when you look at other mines that are in the middle of nowhere, and then you couple what's been proven by our neighbor, and the probabilities, if we achieve, will become probably stronger as a consequence. With regards to our team, we have very good people on the finance side, very strong, but it's more important to talk about boots on the ground geology, and how we extract our resource. And others have referred to our team as the A team, and Tim really rediscovered, re-explored, and re-quantified the gold of this area. When he started in 2008 with Premier, they bought the property essentially from Barrick, and they, 10 million ounces we see our resource, or really is a consequence of Tim's work. And a large percentage of that resource was discovered between 2008 and 2012. So, we have immense local knowledge. And then you couple that with Ben Clayland, who worked for Tim and then succeeded him from 2012 to 2016. So we really do have the top geologists with knowledge who really understand our neighbor, plus the Geraldton Gold Camp and the extensions. And keep tuned. I think we're going to add some others who have, once again, the local knowledge and skill set, although complementary to Tim and Ben's strength, will add real operating know-how with regards to this area. So I think, Andrew, you had some additional more drill down questions, and with that, I don't know if you want to.
For sure. Thank you very much.
For Tim.
Yeah, thanks Adam for that introduction of the company. It's very helpful for our listeners, I think. So, Tim, maybe you could help us understand a little bit more about the Hardrock deposit. What kind of deposit is it, and are there any other deposits similar to it?
Yes, very good. So just to give you my background, I'm a geologist, and I was vice president of exploration for Premier Gold when they acquired the Hardrock project way back in 2008. So I led the exploration team that has actually created the resource, and then I left in 2012. I was semi-retired. So anyway, I'll just get down to the geology. To answer your question about the Hardrock deposit, Andrew, it's very typical Archean deposit. It's in the Superior Geologic Province. and typical greenstone type deposit. It is orogenic gold deposit, and it's sedimentary hosted. And typically for these kinds of deposits, they have a very straight plunge line, and you measure that in kilometers. So just to give you an example of what I mean by that, I'm just going to share my screen here and just show that to you. This is from our presentation online. Can you see my cursor there? And
Yes,
we'll
I
show
can
the
see it.
slide in your presentation. And just to show you the F zone here, that is the single most long deposit in the Hardrock deposit. So the F zone was mined historically underground. And when we started the Hardrock exploration back in 2008, there was 3 past producers there. And they started off in the 1930s and produced underground and produced on Premier's Hardrock deposit about 2 million ounces of gold. And we came in there and looked for open pitable low grade style deposits around the mine and actually discovered about 6 million ounces. Now 5 million of that right now is in a proven reserve, an open pit reserve that the Greenstone Gold Mines is actually going to start constructing their mine this summer. So our timing is very good. So these kind of deposits are characterized by long strike lengths, a shallow plunge line that you see here. So this is a 3-dimensional longitudinal view of all the deposits, and they're all stacked up in a similar manner like the F zone. And just to give you a context of scale, the F zone starts on surface, which will be part of the open pit, and plunges shallowly to the west. And what you see here in this view is actually 3.5 kilometers in length. And that F zone is open right at the Tombill boundary, which you see here as a dashed line on the left-hand part of this view. And that's where we drilled back in 2011. Premier drilled MM170, and that is the furthest west known drill hole on the F zone. And that actually returned 18 grams over 20 meters, 18 grams gold over 20 meters. And that's a pretty spectacular hit.
Oh yeah, for
the
sure.
reason why we're here today. And so, moving on to your next question.
Yeah, you know, that's 3.5 kilometers of strike length is really long, and it's high grade, as you mentioned, right at the westernmost hole. So what makes you think that this deposit could extend further onto your, basically further down plunge onto the Tombill claims?
That's a good question, Andrew. And to answer that, we need to get into a geological model of the genesis of this deposit. So like I said, it's in the Superior geologic province. It's orogenic deposit and sedimentary hosted. So we need to compare that deposit with others in the area. And the closest mine that is producing right now that we can compare this to is the Musselwhite mine. And the Musselwhite mine is owned by Newmont. It's a few hundred kilometers to the north and west of Geraldton in the middle of nowhere. And it is mining right now and making money for Newmont. And the Musselwhite mine is similar in that it's also in the Superior geologic province. It's also an orogenic gold deposit. It is also sedimentary hosted, specifically in iron formation. And it is same kind of geometry as what we see here in this slide. It is shallowly plunging and straight and stacked ore zones, very similar to this. And you also measure that one in kilometers. So when Musselwhite mine went into production near surface, they started off with a starter open pit, went underground, and they're mining stacked deposits now 5 kilometers away from where they started on surface, down that same kind of plunge line. And Musselwhite has been exploring, of course, further down there And there are indications from surface diamond drill holes that this system extends for 8 kilometers down that same plunge line of all these stacked ore deposits. And
Okay, so
that
it goes 8 kilometers
yeah,
at Musselwhite.
that's right. So by analogy, this deposit here, because it is in the same kind of modeling system as what we saw, what I explained at Musselwhite, could have similar kind of down plunge extent. And that's
Okay.
why we believe it can continue on to Tombill. And Musselwhite mine is making money. They're mining a 5.5 to 6 gram deposit, and they're probably averaging about 240,000 ounces per year, and making money.
Yeah.
And just to give you a context of its location, Musselwhite mine is in a remote location, so it's a fly-in mine. Has to have a camp that supports all the workers, and it is making money. And the advantage in Geraldton, of course, is it's right underneath the Trans-Canada Highway with transmission lines already there, natural gas pipeline, and all the infrastructure that you would need in the town of Geraldton to actually run a mine, which is exactly what Greenstone Gold Mines is doing next door at the Hardrock deposit.
Yeah.
So that is an advantage in that lower costs can be expected. So
Yeah.
that's why we're quite excited by the exploration potential on Tombill. And
Okay.
just to clarify for everybody, there hasn't been any drilling on this target ever on Tombill. So there are no drill holes on Tombill that have ever tested this. And I have to say, as a geologist, I find that very remarkable, that it's underexplored in such a manner as that. And so this is another reason why we really believe that these zones, as we test them with deep diamond drill holes from surface, are going to give us a high probability that we're going to hit gold again.
Oh, that's excellent, and I think that's what we all want to hear, and
Yeah,
that's all what we hope to see.
yeah.
So you have the westernmost hole there, MM170. It's got 18 grams over 20.5 meters. Do you
Right.
think that the grade of the deposit may further increase at depth? And also, how far is that hole away from the Tombill claims?
Well, that's a good question, Andrew. Both are good questions. I can answer the this one is 100 meters from the Tombill boundary. So our first drill hole on the Tombill side will attempt to intersect it about 150, 100 meters away from the other side of the boundary. So only 200 meters away from where MM170 intersected the F zone there. Now, as far as grade, that's a question that I don't know that we would have an answer for yet. I mean, these deposits here are predictable in geometry, but grades can be variable. So I don't know, whether or not the grade is going to increase. We just don't have any information. So
Okay, got it.
that's why we call our drills the truth machines. So that's how we're going to test it, right there.
All right. That's great. Actually, if you think about it, being 100 meters away and you're drilling about 150, I think, meters away from the
Yep.
border, that's like a 200-meter plus step out. And I think in any gold deposit, that big of a step out is huge, right?
It can be, yes. Yeah, but if you look at the geometry here, the probabilities that these stacked zones continue is actually quite high, given the geologic model that I've explained. So
Right.
we're very hopeful that that does continue, and we'll be testing it definitely on that
Okay.
same plunge line. So we're
Tim, can I ask one quick question? That's Adam. Did with regards to the grades, did they on the Hardrock property on the F zone, did they get stronger as you went deeper?
I would say no in general. It is stronger below the 5th level. So historically, the upper part was weaker. And then as they mined below the 5th level, this is back in the 1930s to 1960s, it did increase. But if you look at the average grade, 5.5 to 6 grams was the average grade out of that in the underground portion that we see in part of this slide. So it just
Okay.
remains to be seen whether or not that increase will continue or not. We just
Okay.
don't know.
All right. That's understood. Thanks for that explanation. Could you go over a little bit about the company's exploration strategy and determining if and how far the Hardrock deposit may extend onto your claims? I think you've already explained why you think it would go over the
Mhm.
claims.
Yep.
So the question is more now, what's the exploration strategy?
Yes, good question. We're going to employ, and we are employing, the exact same strategy that I used with Premier Gold Mines in outlining the deposits underground. So that's basically long diamond drill holes from surface with controlled drilling and putting a parent hole right at the bottom of the deposit and then branching off with daughter holes with wedging. So this is a proven technology that we can use with diamond drill holes. And it basically gives you intersections along the F zone or whatever zones that would continue every 50 meters. So we're going to have a parent hole and just march along down that plunge line with drill pads every 100 meters apart. And from that, we expect we can get an inferred resource similar to what Premier got. So that's the recipe, and just a very similar recipe that we used before. So it's
Okay.
I think Tim, slide 7 or 8. I don't have access right now. Might have the sort of full landscape of what you were just discussing.
well, let's go to head.
Yeah. Maybe a bit above.
Talking about before.
I think before this, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, you're on the press release.
Let's see. Oh yes, sorry about that.
A bit further down.
Slide 7.
And maybe it's 8.
Yeah, 8's the same
Yeah,
one.
that's it. That gives the whole program.
Yeah, that's the one I was showing in this one here.
There we go. That's got near surface drilling, and if you can just move it to the left a bit.
So,
yeah.
And this is a Google image, and you can see the Tombill Mines Group here. That's our property. Hardrock project here. There's the proposed open pit with 5 million ounces of reserves in it. And they're going to begin construction this summer. And so we have these targets here on our side. So we're going to march across it. And you can see the white dots there. And that's marching across the Tombill down that same plunge line. And that will be defining any resource there at 100-meter spacing. So that's the recipe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the surface is on top of that,
So there are other near-surface targets. You can imagine that a starter pit would enhance economics of a deep deposit quite a bit. So that's another reason why we're doing that. And again, these are targets that have not been explored predominantly since the 1940s. And again, I find that very surprising. And so we have a lot of hope for this, because in the 40s, you can imagine, just like at the Hardrock project, they were only looking at narrow, high-grade quartz veins to go underground on. Historically, there was never any emphasis on low-grade, open-pittable targets. So when you look at the Hardrock here, they mined underground on that project right there, the Hardrock project, 2 million ounces of gold. And then Premier came in 2008 and outlined from surface diamond drilling another 5 million ounces right in the middle
Wow.
of the underground mines. So that's another reason why we have high hopes for these near surface targets.
Okay. And those are the ones that were mentioned in the press release on February 25th.
That's right.
You mentioned that the last time that there was work on it, it was in the 1940s. I guess that work was pretty sparse and not well documented.
Well, yes, and we don't have all the original data. So we're relying heavily on the government geologist reports of the time, which are reliable. But again, because we can't look at the original data, they're not for 43101
Okay.
type data. But again, we can use this historic data to plan our ongoing exploration, which is what we've done. So this is our plan here for second and third quarter of 2021, basically after the snow melts.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you, Tim, for that overview and kind of shedding the insights and helping us understand a little bit about the geology. It is all quite exciting to me as a shareholder here.
Good. We're excited too.
That's great. So maybe we'll do a couple of closing questions here for Adam. What do you think are, what can current shareholders or prospective shareholders look forward to in, I guess, the next several months and the rest of 2021?
Well, I think it's clear that Tim has pointed out what we're doing. I mean, this map here really outlines where our work and our capital is going. Is to do phase one, which are the blue dots. We do the surface and near surface work now, but we're in quite a cold, snowy climate, so we will do that and essentially do exploration on the most diversified basis possible. We know some zones are deeper, as Tim has explained, but we know, like our neighbor, there's zones on the surface. So it's really in our interest and all our shareholders' interest is to find as many zones, understand the grades best we can, and try and get to that inferred resource as soon as possible. We're essentially just doing what Hardrock would do if they had this property. So our goal is to get information out as we carry on this exploration, work in the most prudent and most prudent way possible, and do it on the most cash efficient way possible.
Yeah, excellent. And I guess in closing, thank you, Adam and Tim, for your time. If there are any interested individuals who would like to know more about the company, where can they go and who can they contact?
Well, they can contact obviously myself, which is in all the press releases in the presentation that's here and on the website, or Retta Jalabi, who is our head of IR and corporate strategy, and he can. And I think you've spoken and communicate with him before, Andrew. So the same applies as you have with us in terms of communication.
All right.
Also, I just wanted to point out there, Andrew, that a lot of the geological outline that I've been giving is actually taken out of my 43101 tech report. So you can actually get a copy of that right on Tombill's website.
Oh, excellent.
More geology.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us today. Adam Horne, CEO of Tombill Mines, and Tim Twomey, Senior Advisor to the company.
Very welcome.